So picture this.
Okay.
You're in a dungeon, and you are been cornered by a skeleton.
Spooky.
Super spooky. And you've only got this dagger to defend yourself with. And you're trying to stab the skeleton, but it's not really effective.
Doesn't cut bone good.
It goes right through the bones. He just calls you a jerk. There's nothing else that really happens there. So you decide, well, maybe I can try something else. You kind of knock him down.
Trip him.
You can trip him. You can do a trip attack. And then he's on the floor. Maybe you have an easier time getting at him. Your friends might be able to come and help kick him and try
Tactical
to
advantage.
Exactly. So you make this trip attack and you roll this d20. And, you could pass or you could fail. You could either successfully knock him down or not. Exactly. But let's say you roll like a 19 and you add your modifier to that. And that's high enough that you can trip this skeleton so hard. You pinwheels in the air, smashes his face on the floor.
Just explodes.
Explodes into pieces. Dead.
Okay.
Right? The other possibility, though, of course, the universal tragedy of role-playing games, the
nat
nat 1.
one.
Absolutely. You roll this nat 1, and you try to push this skeleton, and the skeleton just pushes you right back, just right on the face, boom, knocks you right onto the floor, and you almost die from embarrassment.
There's so many options.
So many.
That's why degrees of success is the best thing about Pathfinder.
Absolutely.
So gone are the days of simple binary pass and failing, because there are 4 outcomes for pretty much everything. You've got your critical success, but you now also have the critical failure. And I don't think anything encapsulates this better than the concept of the basic saving throw.
Sure.
Trap goes off, critically successful, you're fine. Regular success on reflex save, you take half. Critical failure, you double how much damage it does.
Eat it right in the face. And this also applies to a lot of spells, too, which is really great, because nothing feels worse as a spellcaster than you expend this really powerful spell slot, the enemy passes the save, and nothing happens. Exactly.
7th level spell slot just absolutely gone to the wind. And now,
sad trombone.
On their success, or even your own failure a lot of the time, you will still usually get a reduced effect. But it also lets some of these incredibly potent encounter-ending, like incapacitating effects get shoved down under the critical failure, so they're not as prevalent. But you still get those cool moments.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't just turn the boss off. And
Unless
like,
you
well,
do
we're done.
Real good, though.
So, the thing about this crit fails, how does it actually happen, right? Well, classic way it is, you roll a 20, critical success, you roll a 1, critical failure, right?
Of course.
But it's not just 20s and 1s anymore. Now the way it works is if you beat a DC by 10 or more, that's a critical success no matter what you roll.
So if you're fighting a goblin that's only got 16 armor class, if you get a 26 total, no matter what the dice said, that's a critical success.
Absolutely.
This is awesome because it makes a lot of these bonuses that Pathfinder is so known for so much more impactful. If you get a +1 to your attack rolls, that's not just 5% chance to hit, that's also 5% chance to crit.
Which in some cases can double your chances.
Huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. So these plus and minus ones are very, very important. And the same deal, if you apply a negative penalty to a boss monster, for example,
it goes so much further.
It's way harder for that boss to crit you back.
And that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
But this also leads to these kind of spectacular moments happening a lot more often.
Exactly.
Because by the very nature of the system, it's not just 2 faces on the d20 that are making it happen. And based on your play and your team synergy, it can be a lot more. So with the scaling of Pathfinder, one thing that this plus or minus 10 really does is make bosses terrifying when the giant demon crits your fighter on a 14.
Oh yeah.
And make the heroic group encounters where you are over-leveled fighting against some of these cultists you've been versing the entire campaign, and suddenly you crit them on a 12 and are basically immune to their magic.
Yeah.
It scales so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the heroes getting stronger over their old adversaries translates way more interestingly, and you get to see more effects come in too. So things that happen that would normally be very disruptive to a combat, like disarming a foe or just, paralyzing them, turning them off with a spell, something like that. That only happens on a critical success, but that can happen way more often on weaker enemies.
But they have a way to mitigate that on stronger enemies. There's a thing called the incapacitation trait, which kicks in for most monster is off now effects, that if they are a higher level than the caster or than the effect, they get a bonus degree of success. So it is nearly impossible to paralyze a boss fight.
And that's only with those effects where, it's a turn off the boss. It's this encounter doesn't matter anymore because you rolled a 1. Haha, sorry, DM. So for pretty much all of your actions in Pathfinder,
Right.
you have 4 outcomes that you can get. And it's your pass and your fail, but you also have your critical success and your critical failure, which can happen.
And those introduce so many fun and exciting things, and I really like how much you can push to make those happen. You want to make a character that's very specialized in like Intimidate or Deception, you can do that, and then you will get those critical success effects far more often because of the plus and minus 10 system. It's not just when you roll a 20. If you have a huge modifier, because that's what you built your character to do, you'll do it more.
Yeah, absolutely. But even if you don't specifically build for that, a lot of effects have really interesting things that can happen on the critical success side.
Right.
And because of this system, it's not just 20s and 1s. You can wind up, even if you don't specialize, you can get these really cool effects that pop up to make the game really interesting without tipping the whole table over.
Well, that's why degrees of success is the best thing about Pathfinder.
Hey there, everybody. 2 Perception GM Squiddish here. Absolutely blown away by the response to the first 3 actions video, and really glad that you all seem to be enjoying it. There's just so many great systems and features in Pathfinder 2e to make these things about. Let me know what you want to see the most next, and thank you so much for watching.